event being hosted by Techqueria. It's super early in the morning here on the West Coast, Las Vegas. Um, and actually, I'm here in Las Vegas because I'm actually piloting a new podcast project over the past couple of days here at the National Immigrant Integration Conference for work. But to me, I really wanted to bring the vibes from Las Vegas, right? And I wanted to really bring the excitement and bring the energy. And I was thinking about it. How do I bring the vibes to this audience, to this event? And so I thought to myself, so this morning I was preparing and I was listening to Drake and I was like, it is all about the energy. It is all about the vibe. So I'm just going to run through what Techqueria has going on for the next couple of days and how amazing that is, So for example, for 3 days, shedding the light on unique experiences of Latinx and tech through the themes of careers, cultura, and comunidad. Vibe with that. Vibe with me. Look forward to hosting roughly 700 plus attendees, 50 speakers, and 25 sessions with this community. Vibe with that and vibe with me. And then, just what Techqueria does. It's a nonprofit that serves the largest global community of Latinx professionals in tech with 16,000 members and allies. Vibe with that. And the mission is to empower Latinx professionals with the resources and support that they need to thrive and become tech leaders in the tech industry. Now, leaders in the tech industry, that's really something to vibe with. So to begin, I always like to do presentations where I ground us and I talk about personal stories and storytelling to reflect what's happening at these events. So I thought I would talk a little bit about my personal story and just kind of set the energy and the vibe for the day. So again, just to introduce myself, my name is Untitled. I am a podcast host and creator. I'm a mentor. I'm a former community organizer. And I am the host of a podcast called Immigration Mike, which I did for 3 years. And now I am the executive producer of Momentum or Race Forward podcast. But it wasn't always this way. I wasn't always flying around the country piloting podcast projects because in 2015, I was actually let go from the dream job that I wanted so bad. And I know we all have like these aspirations and, we want to work for these companies and progress is not always linear. To get there, it's not always a straight line. So I was let go from my job, but I was so passionate about the community organizing work, the storytelling work that I was doing, and I wanted to keep my voice in the conversation. So what I did was I started filming these very short YouTube videos where just like this, I would get on the screen and I would just talk about what was on my mind that day. And I mean, today I'm talking to, 700 plus people, but back then it was just 1 or 2 people that would share the retweet, share the YouTube video. Actually, I didn't even go back and watch those videos. That's how embarrassed I am of them. But that was the very beginning. And slowly I made that into Skype interviews, and slowly I made that into a podcast. And I built my reputation as a trusted storyteller, as an interviewer. I would interview activists, and then that transitioned to interviewing people in academia, in tech, people who were influencers and elected officials. So I continued on that path and I worked and I built it brick by brick until I got the opportunity to become an intern with a really widely recognized comedy Latino podcast. But this moment really took a lot of courage, and I really had to find it within myself to ask for help in the next step of what I was doing. So this happened at the New York Latino Film Festival 3 years ago. And it's something I call the Kanye West Jay-Z moment, where there was a panelist and I had seen him before who worked on podcasts. And I went up to him. And at this point, I didn't know what I was doing in my life. I really wanted one more opportunity. And so I went and I grabbed him by the shoulder and I said, hey, man, listen, I just need one shot. Can you give me one shot? And that was the beginning of how I became the journey to becoming a podcast producer. Now, over the next couple of days, I'm going to share the next 2 parts of the story. But I wanted to ground us in the beginning of this story, because again, careers and what we're talking about today is the furthest thing from a linear path. But the relationships that we build are so crucial and are just as important at becoming the best in what our expertise is. Now, so with 700 plus people across the nation joining over the next couple of days, this is its own story being written. You know, all these personal stories, all the vibes that we share, everybody that's coming into this space and is reflecting and is sharing and is connecting, this is the beginning of a new story. And I'm excited to see how that plays out over the next couple of days. So with that, you know, I hope you're all energized. I hope the vibe is great. And yeah, so I'll be popping in and out at times, introducing parts of the program. And I think we're ready to talk to our first guest. I'm going to read her bio. See, I'm acting like it's a podcast. Like this is my guest. No, this is one of Techqueria's keynote speakers. I just get into that mode, right? So it's Claudia Romo Edelman, who is a social entrepreneur, a global mobilization expert, and a determined catalyst for positive change. She's a recognized speaker, media contributor, and advocate. Claudia is the founder of the We Are All Human Foundation, a New York-based nonprofit foundation dedicated to advancing equity, diversity, inclusion, focused on unifying the U.S. Latino, Hispanic, Latinx community, and promoting sustainability and purpose-driven activities, particularly within brands, tech, and creative industries. So super excited to introduce Claudia. Claudia, can you please join us? And as you saw when I was introducing her, I had to do my little Drake, you know, the vibes, right? We had to continue that. So Claudia, if we could get you to join us, and then I could head out. Okay, how do I join you? Can we please get some tech support for Claudia in the backstage? Okay, I think we're getting some tech support. Please accept permissions. I'm just gonna narrate the chat, you know. All this high drama, right, in the morning. It's always high drama in the morning as we begin conferences. And so I guess while that's happening, it makes me think of so I work in the communications department at Race Forward, and part of what we do is hosting the largest multiracial gathering of racial justice advocates in the nation every 2 years. But to put together the conference, oh man, that takes like 8 months of solid work of 60 plus staff to be able to get that done. Oh, Claudia, here you are. Let's see if you could join us via audio. Okay, 1 second. I think I just may need to disconnect my microphone. Okay. 1 second, Claudia. I'll be right there. I just got to change the settings here. Okay. Claudia, I think you're still muted. Yeah, I see the mute button on your screen. That was the video button. Okay, so I guess as we're still continuing that, I'm going to continue with the story about organizing for the Facing Race conference. And so for the Facing Race, the last one we had in person, we actually, so I was I was in charge of all the merch that was being done, and I was in charge of working with most of the speakers. And that meant like every day, like carrying boxes and boxes of shirts that we were selling. And it meant, you know, running around the whole conference and coordinating everything. And, you know, I would say, you know, it was the most successful conference where we sold out all the merch. And a lot of it was just me, like, you know, to the nearest person coming by and telling them, hey man, like, would you like one of these shirts? These shirts are amazing. You know, you got to sell them. And same thing with the speakers, getting them to where they are. But I would say at the end of that conference, I was spent. I was done. I remember like I came in the end of the second day and I just laid down on the floor. And my supervisor was there and she was like, Handel, do you want some pizza? And I could barely respond to her because I was just so tired and so spent. And so I know what goes into putting together an event. And so this is kind of the growing pains that we have here today, always at the end, at the start of these events. So still waiting to see where Claudia can come in. Let's see. Okay, so Claudia's here. Claudia, are you able to find the link? But you have to bring me up. Let's see. Stage. Let's see.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Claudia. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. I'm so glad you're here joining us this morning.
Wow.
First, I have to say, lovely setup in the back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just here in the hotel room, and like basically the mirror is basically my background. So Claudia, I introduced you.
Yes,
there was one thing that I really wanted to ask you, and I'm hoping you can share with the audience before I let you continue. I took a look at your Instagram page, right? And you have to tell me, like, what is your secret to the perfect selfie?
Well, I don't have a secret for the perfect selfie. I do a lot of sharing and selfies, particularly when I exercise every morning. And I think that the best secret that I can share with you is doing like time lapses. So we do it just like fast mode and never stop just like doing that. No, I think that overall sharing a lot is something that my kids taught me, and that I think it's important for us Latinos to be able to share a bit about our life and how we're feeling and how we're doing, so that we can have even more role models and everybody can, as you were saying, be telling their stories.
Well, Claudia, I'm gonna leave it to you. I do encourage, you know, everybody here, please go check out Claudia's Instagram. You're gonna see what I'm talking about. Like, she has selfies here, there, and everywhere. And again, just thank you so much. All right.
Absolutely. Can I ask you a question? Can you see what I'm presenting? Just like I just want to make sure that I see what it's presenting. It's a bit challenging. Huh? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right.
Well,
you're on.
Thank you so much. Guys, I am so excited to be able to talk to Techqueria. I admire this organization. I admire the mission that you have. And I am here really with a lot of excitement to get more Latinos into tech. That is it, and create community. And I wanted to start with a personal story. Me, when I was a teenager in 1985 in Mexico, there were the largest set of earthquakes, I think, that the city experienced, dropping and having devastated impact in the buildings everywhere, in the psyche of people, collective panic for all of us. And me, like everyone else, after the first of the many earthquakes, went out to the streets trying to seek for shelter and safety, but also look for our family and our friends. And like everyone else, I started volunteering. I was part of a volunteering group of self-organizing, and how are we going to get food and blankets, and how are we going to find people. So I was in that group that was trying to find people, and I was like sweeping the streets of the neighborhood where I was, and where I was like looking for, and it was very confusing. There was a lot of noise, and the ambulances, and the noise, and the screams, and there was a lot of, and we were walking, and all of a sudden I just had this one thing that made me stop and start screaming, and I started shouting my lungs out, like, "Stop! Stop! Come back! Stop!" And like there was this one guy in the group that turned around and said, like, "What?" And I was like, "Stop! Stop! Come back!" And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "I think I heard a voice." He said, like, "Did you think, or did you hear a voice?" And I just looked at him and started screaming even louder, like, "Come back, stop, stop." So by the time he came back, and he was pretty upset, ramping up to me, and by the time he came and he was standing next to me, it was clear. There was a voice trapped in the building. So both of us looked at each other and started screaming together, like, "Stop, come back, come back." And the two of us were able to attract two more people that came and joined us and started screaming together. So the four of us were able to attract a crowd. Like when we were like 20 people, we started pushing that incredibly big wall that was covering the building until there was a breakthrough and there was light coming in. There was an opening in the wall. There was an opening in the wall, and there they were. The eyes of this girl with the eyelashes full of dust and fear, looking at us, saying, like, "You got me right." And that feeling, that was the first time in my life in which I felt useful, in which I felt that I did something. But it was also the first time in my life that it made sense. It made sense to hear my father complaining all the time about me, like, "Oh my God, you're so loud, you're so loud." And I was like, when I was looking at the mother of that girl, hugging her, and like of happiness of having rescued her, I was like, it's so great to be loud. And it's so great to be able to, like for the last 25 years, to be able to do exactly that, be loud and try to feel useful. And I've been lucky enough to have done that for the last 25 years for organizations like the United Nations, UNICEF, the World Economic Forum, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria. And I have a message. When you invited me here to come, I was feeling like that girl screaming out loud when I was a kid, saying, like, "I have something to say. Hear me out, Techqueria. The time for Latinos is today. It's now. We're about to cross the finishing line. We're about to go over the big summit that we have all climbed. It's about to come to the end. And we're about to be the last generation of Latinos that is not seen, not heard, not valued. We're about to turn the page of history so that the next generations can be fully seen, fully respected, and fully paid, full of opportunities for every Latino. The time is now, and it is about to happen. And I don't say that as a super proud Latina only. Of course, I am a super proud Latina, and I'm absolutely optimistic. But over the last years, I've seen communities come out of nothing and thrive with a tenth of what the Latino community has. We just need to have systems to organize ourselves. Everybody wants to do the right thing. All of us want change. We just have to have those frameworks of action. And I've been blessed enough to work on organizations where I was able to do just that, create master plans, frameworks of action to get what all the individual actions, to put them together as collective actions to really achieve systemic change. One of those is the Sustainable Development Goals, the master plan for the future of the people on the planet. And a lot of what I do is influenced by that. And a lot of what I will present to you is influenced by that sense of having a master plan and having a framework where we can all actually achieve the change that we want. Because if there's one thing I want to tell you is all the conditions to succeed are given for us to win this last battle, to cross that finishing line. We have it all, and we can do it. And so that we can start with the same level of understanding, let me just like give you some data. The first thing is, let's talk about the nomenclature: Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. Hispanic is defined as relating to Spain or Spanish-speaking countries. Latino refers to geography. Latinx is a gender neutral form of the word Latino or Latin. But actually that division, that those labels, those nomenclatures, is known only by 3% of the Latino population. The majority of the Latino population doesn't really care how you call them, as long as you pay us well, pretty much, and you respect us. It's fine, whatever you want to use and whatever you identify with. So for those 3% of the people that care so much about it, go ahead and use it. But pretty much, let's not use labels as anything that could be distractive or divisive about what is it or what is it not that is our community, because we are already massively diverse. You have heard all over the time, like particularly since elections, that the Latino community is not monolithic, but we're absolutely diverse. And that diversity brings a lot of intersectionality, and that is very rich. So, for those of you that care about the nomenclature and the labels, please don't use that as a distraction or as a division. Brazilians don't want to use like Hispanic, but Latino and so on. But in reality, that term was an invention of the census, and it was pretty much like a racist, like labeling. When we were crossing the border, we were marked as M's or OTMs, Mexicans or other than Mexicans, and someone said like, that's too complex. Let's just call, everyone looks more or less the same anyways. Let's just call them Latino. So don't get too hung up on that. That's all I'm saying. But what is true is that we have a huge diversity in the Latino community. 21 countries where Spanish is the official language, where 26 countries of origin that what are being put as one. One in every three African American is a Latino. So that makes Afro Latinos 14 million people in the country. One in every four consider themselves indigenous or Native American. 22% of the Latino community is LGBTQ. So pretty much we're all, isn't it? We're absolutely diverse. But what is true is that the census has given us the best, incredible snapshot that we can have about feeling how powerful our community is in this new multiracial country. Latinos were 19% of the population, and that is 62 million people. 19% of the population today, 25% of the population tomorrow. By 2050, we will be 30% of the population. Let's get that clear. Hello, hello, hola, hello, hello, hola. It's amazing. And that will continue being because we're 50% of the population growth. And if you put that together with we're one of the most interracial marriages of the country, that means we will continue expanding. Yeah, we're very generous with our love, and there will be more of us every time more. Latinos, we're super young as well. As a fact, the youngest of the entire country. Our average age is 28 years old. That's 10 years younger than the rest of the population. Latinas, 26 years old average. We look young because we're young. But the most important data point of the age that I will leave you with is the mode, and that we don't know as much. The mode is the most common. The most common age of 62 million people today, the most common age of our Latino population is 11 years old. The most common age of non-Latinos is 58 years old. Please tell me if you knew that. Tell me if that surprises you. It's 4 decades of pure growth. 4 decades of being the workforce of the future, 4 decades of being the consumer of the future, the employee in the future, the everything of the future. When you remember those companies that 10, 15 years ago used to say, yeah, let's go to China so that we can have 1 decade of pure growth. Well, guess what? Latinos are 4 decades of pure growth here, today. We have to invest in our community because we're the future of this country. And we're critical to corporate America. We're not only many, we're not only young, we're the economy. A couple of days ago, the Latino Donor Collaborative just came out with a report on the GDP. What is our gross domestic product, the contribution to the economy? We contribute $2.7 trillion every year to the economy. If you would put that money, just to give us perspective, if we would be a standalone economy, we would be the 7th or 8th largest country in the world, larger than Brazil, larger than Italy, larger than Canada. That amount of money equals to the 12% of the gross domestic product of this country the GDP, 12% of the GDP. So for all of us, we should absolutely feel absolutely free to go in the street and watch anyone in the eye and say like, you're welcome, no problem. Yeah, it's okay. 12% of your salary on us. And you too. And you too. No problem. 12% of your salary today. And it's going to keep on growing because the Latino GDP grows 7% faster than China. If you put the world together, what are the economies that are growing faster in the world? The Latino economy grows the third largest in the world, not America, the Latino economy. We're the driving force. If America would be Iron Man, we would be the heart that is giving it fuel and it puts the energy forward. And I need you to know that and feel proud and understand how critical we are to corporate America. And we're critical also because of the size of our wallet. Our purchasing power is $1.7 trillion, $1.5 trillion last year, 2 years ago, 1.9, 2 years from now. So that means that with the growth of any company and any industry, if you're the auto industry, we're 68% of your growth. If you're Toyota, we represent 90% of the growth. PepsiCo, 65% of our growth. And that will continue being because we keep on growing. We keep on growing in purchasing power, in annual household spending. We keep on growing because we're the future of this country and we're critical to the economy. 40% of the workforce of the future is Latino. And the census, and please, if you haven't looked at it, have a tequila on me and just like go and have a bath of optimism and just like drink the Kool-Aid through that. It's amazing. Every myth and stereotype in the census is broken. We're not takers. We are makers. In an aging America, Latinos are paying for the Social Security and Medicare of the country. We pay $215 billion a year in taxes, $100 billion in Social Security, and all the things that you have in your mind, like, yeah, we, like the Latino community doesn't speak English. 80% of our community is bilingual and speaks English. As a fact, a good degree, a good percentage of Latinos do not speak Spanish. And we're finishing high school and we're getting into professions. We're getting into management, business, science, arts. We even on tech, 13% growth in computer related sciences. So we are the future of America. If you start looking at the outlook of 2050, 2060, Latinos are really integral to the growth of this country. Latino progress is American progress. And just to give you a bit of what is going to happen in every decade, but you can go on and just like look at the projections. This decade, by 2020, Latinos, the GDP of the Latino community will probably be higher than non-Latinos. By 2030, we're going to have in Nevada and Florida more than 1/4 of the voters will be Latinos. By 2050, we'll have 30% of our population, as I said, hello, hola. The population will be Latinos. More than 53 million fans of the NFL Latinos. 2 out of 5 baseball players will be Latinos. And in 2060, 1 in every 3 American women will be Latina. And we will be 30% of the workforce growth total. This is America's look. That's why when I look at the Hispanic Heritage Month theme, Esperanza, a celebration of heritage and hope, I'm like, yes, we are the Esperanza of the American dream. We are the Esperanza of this country. And we've been contributing since the 16th century. We've been contributing in everything from mining, agriculture, business, media. We created large-scale cattle. We even created the most iconic of the symbols of America, like the Western saddle for the cowboys. We were contributing in every single one of the wars. We're the second most condecorated minority, like participating and sharing blood and sweat in the Civil War, in the American Revolution. We've been paying for that as well. Our first baseball player, when I ask people, they say like, yeah, probably in the 70s, the 80s, 1902. We were before any other group. Like Luis Miguel Castro, first baseball player, 1902. 1927, our first football player is Latino. We've been making it and shining and being contributors to the country since then. And that will continue being because of who we are, because of our values, because of our hard work ethic. 8 in every 10 Latinos thinks and wants to work hard and has that as an ethic and believes that that's a priority and something that they want to move forward. We're fighters. 45% of our community has moved from the low income to the middle class in the last 10 years. That makes us the social mobility group 3 times faster than any other group in America. We're ambitious. We want to buy a house. We want to buy a car. We want more. We're aspirational. We want higher. We're optimistic. We believe in the American dream. As a fact, 73% of our community thinks that our children will be better off than us. And the most important of our values, the most that we have ingrained in our DNA, is we're family and friends. That is why we over-index in every single social media platform, in Twitter, in video, in everything. 85% of our community has 2 parents. We don't have single mothers as much. We have 2 parents, making the social structures of our community super strong. So for me, it's absolutely clear. We are the entrepreneurs, the voters, the hope of America, the job makers, employers, entrepreneurs, and yet we're underrepresented, misrepresented, and undervalued. We're 19% of the population and 1% in politics. 19% of the population and only 1% in corporate boards. 19% of the population and less than 1% in family television programs. We're 3%, if you're generous, average in tech overall. It makes no sense. We're powerful. Look at the data. We're powerful. But we're seen as weak. We're big. But even ourselves, we think of ourselves small. And if you're a marketer like myself, you wonder like, what the hell? This makes no sense. The product is amazing. We're finishing high school. We're like speaking 2 languages. We have families. We're valued. So what is on earth happening? And there's big crisis that we have to avert. Hispanics in tech, and we're not represented. And tech is the future. And if we're not there, tech is going to have a problem because we are the youth and we're the future. And we will have a problem because we're not going to be part of the future, which is actually created by tech. Only 4% of tech, of the high force of tech is Hispanic, while representing 27% of the population of Silicon Valley. In Google, 5.9% of Google employees are Latinos, and a lot of them are coming from subcontractors, catering, cleaning. 11 out of 713 individuals, investors with more than 250 million. So we're 19% of the population, but only 1% of VC funds. And pretty much we have to address this. And it's not that we don't have, like obstacles. We have structural barriers that we have to address, but we have a plan. We can make it a plan. We can make it a shared agenda for all of us. Better jobs, better education, better gender equality, and better health. That conglomerate of the barriers that we have to address, they all signify upward mobility. If we address them all together, if we have a plan and we address them, and we're putting that as part of the Sustainable Development Goals so that companies and countries and governments can address them as part of what they're already addressing. And looking at the Latino population with more disaggregated data, understanding our issues within those plans. But what I'm here today to call you on are the things that today we can do, the barriers we can tackle today, the things that every one of us has the power to change and that are stopping us from exercising our full potential to help us revert that enigma that we have about being so powerful but feel so weak. And I would like to share them with you because these 3 insights guide everything we do at the World Human Foundation. The first one is that 77% of the Latino community doesn't know of our own contributions to the country. And that means that I want you just to imagine that in your companies, 77% of your peers, your colleagues, do not know what they do or how they contribute to the bigger picture. It's a disaster. We don't know how powerful we are. We don't know we have a voice, and therefore we might feel voiceless. And so it's a crisis of an education campaign that we all have to adhere on to educate our community about our own contributions to the country. And tech has an incredible role to play in making sure that we send data, that we all become activists, that we make sure that there's no unconscious biases that are not turned around through technology, through making awareness, through connecting people and educate everyone and anyone on the contributions of Latinos. And what I'm here to ask you is to drink the Kool-Aid. I know it feels hard, but we're powerful. We're beautiful. We're massive contributors to this country. And I know it's hard because we've been told otherwise for so long, but we are powerful. And I need you to take a mirror and look at yourself and understand how many we are, how young we are, how big is our wallet, how much we contribute to the economy, how much America is dependent on us. And they say, yes, we're powerful, and share the mirror with others. And you become a activist of the community. It's time for Latinos to talk to Latinos about the power of Latinos or Latinx or whatever you feel like saying. That is the important part. The number 2 insight that guides us is that 76% of Hispanics, Latino, Latinx cannot be themselves at the workplace. So if you're Jorge, you have to pretend to be George, and you leave yourself at home and you come to work with someone you don't even know. And so it's absolute a shame for everyone. It's a shame for us because we have to hide who we are, hide our Latinidad. It's a shame because we're going to be disenfranchised. We're not going to be as engaged. It's a shame for companies because the likelihood is that we're going to create a revolving door and we're going to go to a place where we can be welcome, when we can be ourselves. And it's a shame for companies because you're losing the emotional engagement that comes with every Latino, with our hardworking, with our loudness, with our aspiration and our dream. It's a shame if we don't create inclusive environments in corporate America where we can be ourselves. We have to, because it's the clever thing to do as well. We absolutely are the youngest cohort of the country, and any company will have a talent crisis if you don't address that. And you're not saying like, hi, I will make everything possible for Latinos to be able to be themselves at my place. So come work here. The last thing I want to share with you, which I think is the most surprising insight for me, was that 90% of the Latinx community identifies as Latino or Hispanic, but we do not act as a Hispanic community. So we identify as Latinos, but we do not act as a Latino community. We're fragmented. We're absolutely divided. Mexicans don't talk to Venezuelans, don't talk to Colombians. It's even worse, right? The Cubans of Miami don't want to talk to the Cubans of Chicago. Oh my God, the Cubans of Los Angeles, so different. And so bananas, all this fragmentation, it puts us in bubbles. And when you're inside of a bubble, you think that everything's small because you can't see much, right? But also you think that the oxygen is limited. And if you're there, you might actually taking my oxygen. So I don't want you in. I want to elbow you out. And that's a scarce mentality. And we have to bust the bubble. We have to bust the bubble and realize there's no oxygen, there's air, and it's abundant for everyone. And it doesn't matter if you breathe, because I can breathe too. And there's no seat at the table because there's no table. There's only a country full of opportunities for every Latino if we support each other. So enough of the fragmentation. Enough of focusing on the differences. It's time for us to unify, feel proud and feel united, and have a mentality of unification, shared agenda. How do we support each other? How do we buy from each other? How do we mentor each other? How do we promote each other? And I've been obsessing over the last 3 years about what really unifies us all, what can be something that we're all addressing, that we all share. And you know what I found? I've been trying to look at data for 38 million data points. And what I found is that if you look at the data in a two-dimensional way, you can find the differences. You can see first generation, second generation, language, this one, that one, and so on. It's totally right. But if you shift a little bit the angle of the camera, you start looking at the path, the pattern, the journey that we all have. And all of us are following the same journey. We're all taking the same highway. And that's the highway that goes to the American dream. Because what unites Latinos is our desire to progress, to move forward, to go ahead, adelante. We don't use as much our rear mirror because we're focusing on progressing and we're rising above. We're rising above fear and challenges, and we're rising above pandemics. But what is clear to me as well is that the higher you go, the lonelier it gets. So it's of self-interest for all of us to unify. It's self-interest to open the door for each other, to share the access code, to not be the only one in the room because it's harder to push you around. and it's important for us to realize as well how much we matter, how much our opinion matters. And we're not clear. We think that we don't bark and we don't bite, and we don't bark and we don't bite, but we actually share what we like and we don't like by walking out. So imagine if you're a company and all of a sudden we walk out. We're not going to go to the CEO or to the HR, probably. Give me a second. I'm getting sick. So what will happen is we will walk out. I'll not go to the CEO. We will probably, understand if you're a company, how much that can affect you. How much it can affect you if all of a sudden your Latino consumer, if you're Toyota, 90% of your consumer all of a sudden feels like walking out, you're in deep trouble. And for us Latinos to realize, mama, I can actually, I can be a threat, right? Like I can red flag here, because if we don't like something, we walk out. And if we realize that power, how empowering will that feel? But what is absolutely right is that everybody wants to do the right thing. And as much as there's power in walking out, there is more power in walking in and doing the right thing. And that is why it's so important for companies, for organizations, for people to engage with us proactively, positively, a la Latina way. Do not wait for a tragedy to speak up for Latinos. Do not wait for a tragedy to stand up for us. We're not going to genuinely engage with you. We need proactive people that care for us, not only our wallets, our community, our future. And that is why we created the Hispanic Star, as a way to recognize that we're 100% Latinos, but also 100% of Americans, like 200% of a person. So we took the star from the American flag, the ñ from Espanol, and we put it together. We have a symbol, like the rainbow for the LGBTQ, a symbol that can unify us all. So when you see that in the future, you're like, that's good for Latinos, but also a symbol that repositions us as stars, positive contributors to the country, recognizing we've been shining in the sky of America since the 16th century. We just had a huge, huge cloud covering our shine. And this is the time for us to unify and remove that cloud and make sure that everybody understands that America is made of stars, and we Hispanics, we're one of them. And we want to make it simple for everyone to access the change that we have. And that's why the Hispanic Star strategy is to unify, change the perception and representation of Latinos by mobilizing corporate America, elevating Hispanic self-regard and social recognition. And we have a number of tools with Hispanic Star. We have a tool called the Hispanic Promise, which is the first of a kind corporate pledge to hire, promote, retain, and celebrate Latinos in the workplace. It's backed by 26 different Hispanic organizations. It's the only corporate pledge in the market. It is being signed by more than 250 companies in the last 2.5 years. So if you're in a company and you have not have your company made you a promise, ask them to sign the Hispanic Promise. We have Hispanic Star hubs all across the country, 30, that want to support each other, unify and share the access code. Just like simple as that, a network of people that want to support each other. It doesn't matter if you're with Alpha Prospanica or if you're with a company, media company. Let's get together at the local level to support each other there. Last year, these hubs were able to mobilize more than $14 million of donations, food, PPE, and give it to more than 1.5 million Latinos, just volunteers like you and I, that decided to get together and support each other when we need it. And we have the Hispanic Star, which is a platform, a symbol to unify us all, but also a way to get data, facts, to sing from the same song sheet, to unify so that we can coordinate and act better. And that is effective for companies to engage with employees, so that we can be ourselves, so that they can hire in the future. We can work together in the community through the local action that I was mentioning. We have a number of leadership events so that we can be better and get that development that we need. There's one upcoming summit that we do at the United Nations to try to unify our voices. And we do a number of things. All of us should do a number of things to try to change the perception and the representation of the Latino community wherever we are and whatever we're doing. And so for next year, we have already planned a number of activities so that all of us have tools and milestones and tentpoles of things that all of us can do regardless of where you are, so that we can together move the community forward, remove that cloud, get us access to places. And what I'm going to tell you is that it's happening. The dam is breaking, the water is leaking. The question is whether you want to have your hands in the wall when it breaks, because if all of us put our hands in the wall when it breaks, it's going to break faster. And if I would be in the earthquake when I was a teenager, I would be calling you on now. I will be shouting out to you now. Come, join, take action. It's getting traction. There's more and more companies, more and more people. I don't know whether you have noticed, but this Hispanic Heritage Month, more and more companies are expressing visibly, this is going to happen. We have to do this. We have to do this for our ancestors. We have to make sure that they realize their sacrifices were absolutely worth, and that we're going to make it for the next generation as well. And all of us can make a difference. So I hope that all of you can take a couple of action points, which is get energized, get the data, drink the data, get involved, become a factivist. Share the data with everyone you can in your company, in your groups. We have it all ready. Go to hispanicstar.org to find all the toolkits, all the presentations ready to go. Get ready to speak and become an ambassador and a factivist of your community. Let's get organized. Let's get in networks. Techqueria is an amazing network of people that want to support each other so that we can elevate people in tech. Get organized. Get organized at the local level. Be part of the hubs that we have at the local level to help each other and to help the community. And lastly, let's get mobilized. Let's get action going. Let's get investment going. Let's get more funding, more people, more companies, so that we can invest in our future. I want you to picture this. Stars shining together form a constellation. And our time has arrived for our constellation to shine. So thank you so very much for the opportunity to present to this very distinguished audience, and I would be happy. To take any comments or questions or whatever you feel is appropriate with the time that we have left. So there's a question here that I'm seeing from Luis Valencia, and I just don't know exactly whether I should read the question or if you guys want to read the question or jump in. So Luis, jump in if you want, but I will answer your question about where can we find out to align the Sustainable Development Goals. So we created something called the Hispanic Sustainable Development Goals, which is we took the Sustainable Development Goals and we started looking at them through the lens of Latinos, of Hispanics. And we're working with a number of institutions to feed up that lens. We're working precisely with Professor Jeffrey Sachs from Columbia University. And we're adding that more. So we have at hispanicstar.org, if you go there, if you want to send me an email to claudia@worldhuman.org, we can share with you the data that we have about the HSDGs, the plan that we created through that, so that companies, particularly companies, can align what they are already doing with sustainable development goals to what they can do with Latinos on the diversity and inclusion, so that we're not creating multiple frameworks, but we're like aligning them. So Luis, again, if you want, is hispanicstar.org or Claudia at weareallhuman.org. Good stuff, good stuff. Well, I want to say thank you so very much for Techqueria, for allowing me the opportunity to address you today. This is the beginning, I hope, guys, of a Hispanic Heritage Month that matters, that really matters. That it's not only a couple of us, like having bad margaritas at the corporate level, and like using that as a check the box, so that we can make it as big as Pride, like Pride meets Halloween pretty much. And I really hope that you're energized by the data, that you're mobilized, and ready to take action and become one. So I wish you all a very happy Hispanic Heritage Month and a great conference. Thanks so much for having me. I don't know what happens now.